Morning, Shannon. Hey, we got some folks joining. Gonna give it a minute for folks to rally on in. We usually don't start till like 10:03 anyways. So who's here? Say hi down in the comments. I want to see who's here. Volume is a little low. May need to talk louder. Let me make sure I got the right one. Stream comments likes. Let's see. Okay. How do we get back? Well, good morning, Pat. How's the volume over there, Pat? Can you hear all right? I got my earbuds in, so it's supposed to be going through. Hey, we got some folks joining. Good morning, Keith. It's a snowy day out there. Natalie, volume is good. All right, that's good to know. Thank you, Natalie. Joyce says, please talk a little louder. But it's good to see you, Joyce. Some people got good volume and some people don't. Don't know what makes the difference. Leah, good morning. Hey, if you could put in the comments how much snow you got. I want to see snow totals. I've got probably about 8 to 10 inches, and the plows have not been down yet. So how much snow did you got? Put it in the comments. I'd like to see some comments about how much snow you got. While we're waiting on those, all the light seems to be behind you. Yeah, it does. It is. I don't have a curtain, but it does make the beard look angelic. I will say that. Maybe if I, whoop, right there. I'm gonna stick right here. We got Santa's over here, and we'll call that good. And oh, my left and my right is, there we go. Block the light. That's as good as I got for a video. A couple of announcements before we get going. We're still collecting the personal care items for the Looking Glass Terrace, so please drop those off in the office during office hours this week. Also, Children's Sunday is December 14th. We've got some food and fun and music planned for that day. It should be a blast. Winterfest is the 6th, which I think is next week. That's like Saturday. So Winterfest is there at 5 o'clock. We have the jazz band playing, and then Tom Ropel Band plays after that. We have coffee, cocoa, cookies, all that kind of stuff for the rest of the time, and then it ends with the light parade. So come on down for that. And we also have our Christmas Eve candle lighting, 6:30 on Christmas Eve. That's the reception, and then 7 o'clock is the service. So that is that's all the things. So if you have any prayer requests that you wanted to share, you can put them in the comments, and then I will write them out for you and put them on our table and light a candle when I get to church on Monday. So if you wanted to take a moment and write anything out, or you can just put if you wanted to like put a little emoji down there that like actually symbolizes what it is. You don't want to put everything on public, whatever. You can be as ambiguous or as word for word as you'd like. So go ahead and put that down in the comment section, and I'll get those on our altar this week. So that's it. We are, I haven't even been out to plow the drive yet because the snow plows haven't even been down our road. Oh, Pat, you got 6.5 inches on the back deck railing. Yeah, I think we got 8 or so, and the trees look really pretty. All of the pine trees. You probably can't see anything out back because it's a little bright. But let's see. Here we go. Anyone else got a snow total you want to share? Well, let's get into this. Today's the first Sunday of Advent, and it's weird that we're all snowed in, but this is the start of a whole new liturgical year. This is it's not just a new season called Advent, but we have a whole new liturgical year starting, and we're starting a new series for Advent called From Promise to Presence, and it kind of tells the story of Christ coming into the world from the promises made in the Older Testament to that presence coming in the person of Christ in the New Testament. So week 1 we look at hope, and we'll be in Matthew 24. Week 2 next week we'll look at joy. Week 3 is peace. Week 4 is love, and then Christmas Eve is the kind of our 5th Advent service, and that will be the salvation or redemption candle. So week 1 is all about hope, and I think we could all use a little bit of hope. Now, the scripture reading for today is a little bit odd for Christmas season, but I say that every year. So let me read our scripture out of Matthew 24. Jesus is talking, and he says this, "But about that day and hour no one knows, neither the angels of heaven nor the Son, but only the Father. For as the days of Noah were, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. For as in the days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day Noah entered the ark. And they knew nothing until the flood came and swept them all away. So too will be the coming of the Son of Man. Then 2 will be in the field, 1 will be taken, 1 will be left. 2 women will be grinding meal together, 1 will be taken and 1 will be left. Keep awake, therefore, for you do not know on what day your Lord is coming. But understand this, if the owner of the house had known in what part of the night the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake and would not have let his house be broken into. Therefore you also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect." Now, I say this every year for this passage, but what an odd way to start the Christmas season, and it absolutely is. We're used to hearing about angels and shepherds and Joseph and Mary, but instead we get the end of the world passage, which is weird, but that's always on Advent. I say it every year, and it's weird every year. So a little bit of context of what's happening in the passage. Jesus has already entered Jerusalem on a donkey, claimed to be the true king. He went into the temple and tossed over the tables and the money changers. So this is the next thing that happens in the narratives, in the storyline, is his anointing, his arrest, his trial, his crucifixion. So this is the end of his life. This is the end of his story. And right in this chapter, before he says these things, Jesus told off all of the religious leaders and then predicted the fall of Jerusalem and the destruction of their temple by the occupying Roman forces that were in Jerusalem. Now, this is obviously going to make the disciples really anxious. So they ask Jesus, so when is all this going to go down? And Jesus answers with some really cryptic Jewish apocalyptic language that has been taken out of context for ages and ages and ages. So what he shares in that passage is actually not good news. He's telling them like about the end of their world. Not the end of the world. That's where we get all off with things, but it's the end of the a world. And so my question is like, how does hope then fit into this passage that seems like a doomsday kind of a passage? But after kind of diving into it and looking at it, figuring it out, I came up with a couple of ideas that I'll share with you. Maybe you know somebody who's like absolutely toxically positive. They just have this positive mentality all the time, and not just in a good way, but in the way that just never acknowledges like what's actually going on, and they'll never give you like permission with their attitude to be I guess to be sad or to be really where you are. And I figured this part out about this passage in hope. Hope is not a God's got this positivity kind of a thing, but an awareness of both the potential and the reality of each moment that we're in. So the reality in this passage is Jesus has told them your whole world's about to get upended because the people, the Jewish people, are not going to release their death grip on the idea that they can go to war with Rome and God is going to protect them. They are just going to hang on to that for dear life. They kind of have that positivity going on there. That was the reality, number one. Reality number two, the very city and temple that your people have rotated their lives around for nearly a millennium is about to be destroyed. So it's the hub of their culture, their history, their religion, their governance, their economy. It's everything to them. And he says that's about to come to a close. And the reality, the third thing, the reality is he's pretty much saying God does not got this. If you stay in the city, you're going to die. So when you see all these signs that I've been pointing out, head for the mountains because there's cities in the mountains that you can regroup in. So those are the realities that Jesus acknowledges right there in that passage. Now you got to remember that hope acknowledges the reality of the moment, but also the potential of each moment. And so within each of these bad news realities that he gives, hope is also acknowledging those, but also acknowledging the potential in each moment. So the potential is you can build something new around tables instead of temples. The potential is you can build something new that is inclusive of everyone and not exclusive to ethnicity, class, and education. And the potential is you can build something new that is life-giving and helpful instead of oppressive and legalistic. And you can see that the whole Matthew story is about how oppressive their whole way of organizing themselves, the whole religious governance, political, economic, the way that they've organized themselves has become oppressive to the average person. And so the potential in the destruction of that is to build something better. And the book of Acts later on is the story of that happening. The building of a new container to hold the new thing before the old thing gets utterly destroyed. Because the temple is destroyed in 70 AD. And Jesus is speaking somewhere around 30 to 33 AD, somewhere in there. Now, hope discerns the times that you're in. It acknowledges the reality and the potential of each moment. Both of those things have to be there for hope to be real hope and not just a toxic positivity. So he's kind of says in that things, you don't know the hour that's coming, for as in the days of Noah, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. For they were eating and drinking and marrying and giving in marriage and all this stuff, and then they knew nothing until the flood swept them away. There's going to be two people in a field. One's going to be taken, one's going to be left behind. Two people will be grinding meal, one will be taken, one will be left behind. Now, this is not about the end of the world and some kind of weird rapture where people are like sucked off the earth and going into heaven kind of thing. It's not about that. This is about something else. Jesus is touching on their origin stories. He mentions Noah, which is all the way back in Genesis. So he talks about how folks were not able to discern what was going on because they were so caught up in living their own timeline without seeing the trajectory, paying attention to the arc of their own culture that they were in. Now, a good example of this in our day would be back in 2008. I wasn't paying attention to the economy and the markets and all that kind of stuff. But then we bought this house that we're in here 2 weeks before the bubble burst, and then that cut the value of our home in half in 2 weeks. Many people lost their homes. Many people went bankrupt. Some people took huge hits on their credit. And many of us just didn't see it coming. We were eating and we were drinking and we were building families, and we didn't know anything about that until the flood came and swept our economy away. So that's a very similar understanding of what's passage. So he's talking about that happened in Noah. It's going to happen here in Jerusalem. People are just going to keep doing their thing, and then all of a sudden Rome's going to come, and one person will be in a field and Rome will take one, and one person will be grinding, meal, and Rome will take one and take them away. So back in 2008, we were hit hard, and it took a long time to rebuild things. And in 70 AD, they were hit really hard, devastating, but they were already building communities out and about all over the place. Paul was planting churches everywhere. So possibly you felt something like this. Also, you get a diagnosis, right? Some diagnosis that's not good. It wasn't good news. It wasn't what you were hoping for. Maybe you were a family member. And hope isn't believing that God will protect you from it, or during it, or even deliver you from it. That's not hope. But believing that you have what you need to endure through it, regardless of the end results. That's what hope says. Hope does that. It's almost like we confuse toxic positivity for hope, that if we admit how bad something might be, that it might be a lack of faith on our part. But notice how Jesus just admits how bad things have gotten, the probable results, and does not say, I'm going to protect you through it all, so don't worry. But instead, he says, I'll be with you, head for the mountains. We're going to build something new. I like what N.T. Wright said. He said, hope is not a matter of blind optimism, but of a faith that refuses to be cowed by the present world. That was out of Surprised by Hope, N.T. Wright. So you don't need protection, you need presence. That's what Jesus is trying to get to them in this moment. You don't need protection to have a sense of hope. You need presence to have a sense of hope. Now, the second thing I think he wants us to see is that hope is not a powerless pessimism, but believing that we have an actual part to play actively. It's as if sometimes we say, well, this world's just going to the gutter and I'm just going to have to grit my teeth and bear it. Now, those two sayings might still be true, but hope tells us that we have a part to play in steering the direction of where this is headed. So think about it this way, like you lost a job, right? That was a horrible thing. You lost a job. Hope isn't passively waiting for God's rescue, but actively carving the pathway forward from unemployment into a new season. Career, different career. You're going to enter into schooling. You're going to get some more training, right? Notice that Jesus here tells them, stay awake, stay attentive, stay aware. And that is not a powerless pessimism, nor a busied bootstraps mentality that says it's all up to you. It's an attentive posture that can see what is happening around us, but then act accordingly. Sometimes what you need for a given day is rest, a walk, some therapy, right? Like that's sometimes being attentive to what you need in this moment is not just busy, busy, work, work, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, but a nap, watch a comedy, um, take a rest, take a walk, talk to a friend, therapist, or whatever. Now, sometimes what you need is action, decisions, direction, right? You don't have to be on at all times, becoming your best self kind of a thing. What you need is awareness of the times you are in. And then attentiveness is not passivity until we fail to act when the time is right. If our attentiveness senses that we need to move and act and do something and then we don't, then attentiveness turns into a passivity. But here's the thing, like, we are not powerless. We've got things to do and things to build and things to learn. Every day we can co-author how our lives are unfolding. Now, we don't have an ultimate say in what comes our way, but we do have a say in how we respond to it and what we do with it, and we have the promise that God's presence is in the midst of it. And that presence with our action then can carve the pathway out of that moment into a new reality. That's what hope says. It has to acknowledge the reality of where we are and then move towards the potential of what could be. I like what Ilia Dilio says. She says, we are not spectators of reality. We are participants in God's unfolding future. And so you don't need rescue. You need resources. That's what Jesus is saying here. You don't need protection, you need presence. And you don't need rescue, you need resources. That's where hope comes from. Hope comes from those places where we see the world around us and we know what's happening. We have a good grasp on it. And we also can know what we have to do in the present moment to help make things better. That's what hope is. Not just being toxically positive and clichéing the moment away and saying happy, nice things and saying, oh, God's got this and all that kind of stuff. That's not hope. That's more of like dodging the reality of how things are in the present. What it is saying that we have a promise of a presence that walks us through what we're walking through. And we have things to do in the midst of it all. So I like to end with practices and reflections that we can kind of think about. So practices, reflection questions. Where do I default to toxic positivity instead of hope? Second question. Where do I default to passive waiting on God's rescue instead of hope? And the third thing, how can I cultivate a posture of daily attentiveness or wakefulness? Those are 3 reflection questions, and there is a practice that you can try. Set an intention every morning to stay awake to possible invitations from God that day. Keep an attentive posture all day, like wake up in the morning and set an intention, or light a candle, or have a moment of quiet, or say a prayer where you're going to set the intention of staying awake and aware to what the possibility of this moment is. So that's the practice you can try this week. Those practices, reflection questions will be in our Facebook page. They get posted each week now. So if you didn't write them down or you forget about them, they'll be there so you can look them up again. Now, we like to close with a benediction, and the benediction, it's different this time. It's not Malcolm Guite. I got a different one. This is from a nun named Maria Bolding, and she wrote a book, a whole Advent book called The Coming of God. That's around Advent. And she has something on hope in here that I really like. So here's our benediction from nun Maria Bolding. She says this: your hope is not a mocking dream. God creates in human hearts a huge desire and sense of need because God wants to fill them with the gift of himself. It is because his self-sharing love is there first, forestalling any response of prayer from our side, that such hope can be in us. We cannot hope until we know, however obscurely, that there is something to hope for. If we have no glimpse of a vision, we cannot conduct ourselves, our lives, with vision. And yet we do. There is hope in us and longing, because grace was there first. God's longing for us is the spring of ours for God. Maria Bolding, The Coming of God. So that is our message for today. Reminder of our announcements that you can drop off the personal care items for our collection for the Looking Glass Terrace this week in the office. Children's Sunday is the 14th. Winterfest is Saturday at 5 o'clock. Jazz band, Tom Ropel band, and a coffee house. And also our Christmas Eve service is on Christmas Eve starting at 6:30. If you did have an intention of leaving a gift at the church and you're not there, you can drop it off in the office this week. There will be a link down in the comments after I hit stop on this. That will be an online gift. If you can't make it in the office, you'd rather give online, you can do that. So I'm going to put that down in the comments as well. Well, I hope you have a wonderful day and that you get out and play in the snow. Oh, it says, glad to have a plug-in electric start snowblower, Keith. I have the same thing, and I'm very thankful I ain't got to yank on that thing forever. That's just the hardest thing in the world. But that's one of my favorite things, is to snow blow the driveway. And I'm going to be heading out there to snow blow the driveway. I got my heated socks with my batteries. I'm going to turn them on. And I got my hand warmers to stick in my gloves. So I'm going to stay nice and toasty. So you have a wonderful day. I will put the link in the comments if you plan on giving a gift to the church that way. And we'll see you next week. I think the snow will be cleared up by then for sure. So thank you all for coming with us on this journey through hope and everything. And we'll see you next week.